sharing my screen. Okay, so now I cannot see if there are any hands or any technicalities, but I assume that everybody can see my screen.
We can.
Yeah, we can see your screen, and I will notify you if there are any hands up.
Perfect, perfect. So, this is, as Nils said in the introduction, this is a joint presentation by myself. So I'm Pål Rylandsholm. I'm the project leader for the standardization and development of IDO under ISO, and I'm also convening the work group where the IDO standard will be developed and managed under ISO TC 184 SC4. And together with me, Johan Wilhelm Klyver will be presenting, and he is the lead modeler or the technical lead in the development of and standardization of IDO in the same team. So what we'll cover today, I guess most of you and IDO know what IDO is, and it has been thoroughly presented already for the community and in this training session. But I'll still do a quick recap of the background and history of IDO and what it is from a high-level perspective. Then I'll go through the overall status and the plans for the IDO development and the standardization. And I'll also try to convey a message about, how will IDO be made available from today going forward, sort of throughout this standardization process until it has been standardized. And I hope there are somebody out there who can also help me on this messaging if I'm saying anything wrong, but because this has to do with getting the standardization process going in an orderly manner so that comments are coming in the right places. And then we will have Johan will take you through the Draft International Standard version of IDO. So I think and hope he will touch into both the document and the ontology, and then highlight the key changes from the previous versions. Hopefully there will also be some time for feedback and questions towards the end. Maybe not so much, but if there are questions, you can also post them in the chat, and we'll try to respond in writing later on if we are not able to address them in this meeting. So what is IDO? From a very high level, it can be seen as the foundation for a well-organized and consistent digital language for enabling machine understandable information and requirements in industries and throughout the industrial supply chains. IDO is the very top level of such a language or a vocabulary, and it's very abstract and philosophical. And as you see, such a vocabulary will contain things which is more of a generic type. What is a door? What is a valve? What is a power line? These kind of things which are typically covered in a dictionary. Further down, in industries, we work a lot with standards, and these standards also needs to be represented in such a vocabulary. When machines are going to talk, they need to be able to we need to be able to communicate which standards is my item part of, what are the requirements that applies to it, and so on, all the way down to the actual industrial applications. And this holds all the way through, and IDO is the sort of the beginning of this, or the top level of this. And it's all a lot about semantics. We are advocating using the semantic web standards from W3C, OWL, RDF, Sparkle, and Shackle. And it's a lot about ontologies, reference data, and also identifiers, how to identify each and every digital resource in such an information ecosystem. So one can say that IDO is about industrial data and information and requirements. So it's very precise, it's abstract, and it's also simple. It's not a lot of classes in there, and it's not a lot of relationships compared to other ontologies. It's not invented from scratch. It has been mainly derived for and has been inspired by ISO 59262 Part 2 and also BFO, or the Basic Formal Ontology, which has been standardized through this ISO IEC 21838 Part 2 standard, which came out in 2001. It's formulated in a language of OWL2 from W3C, and this enables very precise modeling, and also which is an important feature of this, that's the automated reasoning. It was initially developed in the Norwegian oil and gas industry, but it has now and is now applied in others. Some say, and I think that's probably a good analogy, it's said to be constitute a grammar. Remember the pyramid, the grammar for the digital language, both for humans and machines to understand in the end. As I said, it has been developed for a time, and it started off in the Norwegian oil and gas industry back in 2008. This is a very busy slide. I'm sorry for that. I'm not going through all the details. I guess you might have seen it before as well. So as I said, it started back in 2008 in a joint industry project, and it was further refined and developed and documented in an EU research project called the Optique. And the first implementation took place in 2015 with the ABLE's material master data system. And also rather soon afterwards, Aker Solutions applied this in their push project. It was first presented to ISO in 2017, and a new work item proposal was brought forward in 2018. Then it was under the ISO 59262 family of standards, and it was planned to be a technical report under called ISO 59262 Part 14. And then it has had several interactions related to this under ISO. But in 2022, even a new work item proposal was brought forward, and this caused some questions which arose, and a study was initiated to sort out if, well, is the most suitable place in the ISO family to have it under 59262 or not? And the conclusion was, well, maybe not. We should probably lift this out of the 59262 family of standards, among others, because the industrial scope is wider than only process industry and oil and gas and the oil and gas industry. And there we are. It was lifted out, and a new work item proposal was once again brought forward in 2023. Then it was called IDO, the Industrial Data Ontology. And this, the undertaking was rather large to go from being part of an already existing standards family to bring it into a new one. But luckily we had, the IDO had support from several organizations where it had been applied already, and there were significant experience there. And the motivation from these organizations and from these industry is, well, we need this common language to integrate our standards and to integrate the information across to see across the industries we are operating in. Also very important motivation for lifting this into a standard. But, well, we need a stable reference to secure the investments that we have already done and that we see that are coming. We need to have a normative reference for the top level of the information pyramid, so to say. Also, as I said already, so automation of verification and validation and quality assurance by applying reasoning is a driver, and also bringing this into the ISO with a rigorous process for developing the standards. A lot of experts coming to the table brings, of course, improvements and a very good quality assurance of the ontology as such. And then a little bit more on the details of the schedule. So as I said, we have gone through now. We started off in May 2023 under ISO. We've gone through the key milestones, the committee draft, which was started in March 2024, and this was closed in May the same in this year as well. And now we are very close to the submittal of the Draft International Standard, which is the topic of today's meeting. The target is publication by November 2025. This is, of course, depending on that everything goes smooth from this submittal, and that there are no obstacles on the way. But there is the termination date from ISO, so the limit for ISO to have this is still ongoing. It's October 2026, and we are way within that time limit, I must say. So to put it simply, the task we have been working on from towards this from the previous version, that's about resolving comments which has come in through the committee draft review from the ISO community. And this table shows what we have been facing. We have received a total of 51 comments from 8 different countries, and these comments can be categorized as either technical comments, editorial comments, and general comments. And each and every one of these comments have been thoroughly assessed, and it has been considered what to do about them. Is this something we agree to implement or not? And some of the comments we have disagreed with, so we have had meetings with the individual countries to resolve these when there has been a disagreement. But we have now been able to resolve all the comments, even though we have still agreed that we disagree on this topic, but that needs to be discussed further on as we go along, and that's not very unusual in the ISO standardization process, as far as I know. Then I guess this community is all about application and getting sort of IDO into usage and learning more about it. And since we are now in an ISO process, there are some important things to be made aware of regarding availability of IDO from this submittal going forward. So we are now, as I said, shortly submitting the Draft International Standard to the ISO TC 184 SE4 management, the SE4 committee management, and that will happen shortly. They will do their initial review of the package of IDO and both document and the ontology, and from that will take about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it will be reviewed by the ISO Central Secretariat. I've said that this might take about 8 weeks, but this is different from case to case, depending on the availability of and the burden on the ISO Central Secretariat. The important thing is at this time, IDO is only available to the workgroup members, the people who are part of the workgroup responsible for IDO. So we cannot, following this meeting, unfortunately we cannot share the latest and greatest ontology nor the document. Well, that being said, when the ISO Secretariat have done their review and they initiate this ballot, IDO will be available through the national standardization bodies or the members of ISO. These I have put in a link down here, so on ISO pages where you can find your respective national standardization body. And also there's an example. Typically they will provide all the sort of ballots that are out on a portal like this that is published from Standards Norway. I'll share these slides with you later on, so you can go in and have a look. Also, as we have discussed.
There is a hand up.
There's a hand up. Okay, sorry. Shoot.
Paulo.
Hi. Okay, my name is Paulo Pinheiro. You may not know about me. I developed my career in the US, and I attended this meeting a couple of weeks ago when it was presented, the IDO. Just in terms of background, I have been involved with the semantic web since the very beginning. I was part of the team at Stanford that developed RDF, and then I was part of the standardization of RDF scheme, and then OWL, and then the PROV language. And then I moved to Portugal a couple of years ago, and that's why I'm here now. But during the last 10 years, we have been developing something that is somehow overlapping with IDO for the last 10 years as well. And we have two major repositories in the US at the moment. So having said all of this, going straight to the point because we do not have a lot of time to talk about me, is that during the presentation I saw 2 weeks ago, I was really impressed with everything that was presented. I think it's very nice, the level of concerns and the scope of IDO. But the interesting thing I saw is that compared with the things we have, there are a couple of things that are very critical for large-scale systems that we have developed with IBM, for instance, and with Mount Sinai School of Medicine and with the National Institute of Health in the US.
Excuse me, Paulo. We said in the beginning of this that we should try to have the presentation first without too many interruptions.
Right. Sorry, then.
Save the questions and discussion until the end of the presentation. Is that okay?
That's fine. My only question was basically if there is still room for more feedbacks for IDO.
Yeah, we would like to have more feedback, sure, but especially since this is recorded, too many interruptions make it more difficult to listen to the recordings. So
right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
just because it was presenting.
Okay. But if you go ahead, Pål.
Yeah, so I think the whole reason for me saying this about the availability is that we are seeking feedback in the process. So it will be issued through the ISO system, but comments should come in through the ISO system, and I'll clarify that a little bit later on as well, how to engage. Okay, so I think I've said the most important things about this. So, well, following the ballot that will the ISO initiated this ballot. This closes at the earliest May 2020. In May, I said 2024. That's obviously a mistake. I have to update that. That would be 2025, of course. And then a decision needs to be made if we are going for a final draft international standard. Resolve comments for that, the final draft international standard as well, and there will be a ballot. This is much shorter than this one, and then publishing of IDO earliest November 2025. Okay, so that's about the ISO and the IDO process. I would just like to highlight as well, and I guess several of you listening into this are also part of this work with the use cases. So in parallel or together with the IDO development, there are use cases being developed in different industry communities, and these are listed here, the ones that are being worked on for the time being. We are talking about pump lifecycle, which is about the alignment of processes and standards like ISO 59006, GFOS, and DEXP, looking at the sort of the DEXP, the life cycle model that has been communicated a lot throughout the DEXP community. We have a pump with firmware led by Grundfos, which is how to model a pump with software, with embedded software. Pump station is developed in the Swedish community at the University of Luleå. We have supply chain in the chemical industry, also in the Swedish community, and the UML to IDO transformation, how to go from the UML modeling a UML model into IDO. That's also led by it through the Swedish community, but it's also very important now, and there's a lot of discussions about this related to other standards under SC4 as well. The valve ontology, that's demonstrating reasoning on a model how to model valves according to certain or industry standards, and then applying reasoning to match the valves with the valve requirements with the valve specifications coming from different vendors. And then we have a failure mode and effect analysis that's led by from the University of Western Australia, an ontology for this process. And that's been said, but I've mentioned that. And then the final deliverables from the IDO project, it's obviously the document, the standard document, which will be published by ISO. We have the ontology, the IDO ontology itself, which will be an electronic insert following the standard. So one can say that the standard document is more of the manual of the ontology. It contains also a textual rendering of the ontology itself, but it's more of a manual of IDO, what it is, and certain aspects of modeling it, also alignment with other ontologies, which Johan will talk about later on. We have the ontology itself and also the use cases, which will be published on PostCISR's web pages. And so information about use case and also resources for more data and models such which has been applied in the use case. Well, it should also be mentioned, IDO is the initial part of the new standards family, ISO 23726 OBI, which is managed by the Workgroup 26 with the same name, the ontology-based interoperability. And we have now additional parts in progress, which is the part 1, which is the overview and fundamental principles. What are the parts we foresee in this family of standard, and what does it take? What are the fundamental principles that should be followed when you are a part of this family? And that's in particularly interest with regards to what does it take to be an IDO compliant or an ontology using and applying IDO. Terms and definitions for the standards family will be developed as a separate part, and then we have the first domain-specific ontology coming in, the scheduled data ontology, which is now out for ballot in the ISO system. And then on the how do you engage and how do you get around the table to influence and to drive and to adopt IDO? Well, of course, being part of the community is very important. I think to now at the stage we are now, if you would like to provide comments and if you'd like to have access to IDO now, you should join the Workgroup 26. I think there are different rules in the different countries how to be a member and if there are financial obligations involved as well. But you need to contact your country's national standardization body for this. You could also join what we have called the IDO consortium with the sort of key drivers. For this, there might be a financial commitment or a commitment for in-kind work in the consortium. And if you're interested in hearing more about this, you can contact me. Or you can also join the PostCISR Association, which is a key driver in the development of IDO. And more information about joining PostCISR is found on their web pages. And by that, I think that was supposed to be the very short, but it was a little bit long introduction to IDO and this development. But then I think we can go over to you, Johan, if you're there, to dive into the details of this version and both the document and the ontology.
Yes, thank you, Pål. Like you, I will try to be brief. I think I'm looking forward to the discussion later during this meeting, so I don't want to miss that. All right, my ambition right now is first to talk briefly about what has changed since the CD, the community draft version that came out earlier this year. So the main thing, I suppose, is that the ontology will receive a version bump because there is incompatible change happening between what was in the community draft version and this newer version. And we will, although this is subject to settling of the fine details, but we will likely make available the review update in the interim as we are looking forward to this date next year sometime. So there will be a version change from version 3 to version 4. And the changes that have been implemented in response to the ballot comments that came in for the community draft, the changes are actually very small. I can tell you that one entity was added, but this is just an annotation property. One was replaced. I'll get back to this. We added one restriction that one might have said, might say was missing in the previous version, so one axiom added. And then there have been some minor changes to the annotations of resources in the ontology. So the only major change here is that the class called artifact has actually been completely banished from the ontology. We now have instead physical artifact. This is a subclass of physical object, as one would expect. This is a change that we did not adopt lightly. We had extensive discussions during the in the weekly IDO modelers meetings, and found that the balanced and considered choice was to replace artifact with physical artifact. I would actually kindly ask you not to open a broad discussion on this topic. There are reasons in favor and there are reasons against this change, but we have landed on the change, adopting this change, thinking it is the best overall choice. So the IDO document has also been seeing some updates. This is where the bulk of the work went on after we received comments to the community draft version, because there were many comments on the aspects of the document and IDO as a standard. These were much more comprehensive than the comments to the ontology itself. This could be taken as an indication that the ontology is settling, in the sense that it is now time to start to really use it, and then experience needs for change over time, while the document still is seeing changes. So there have been updates mainly to the scope, to the terms and definitions, some minor, very minor changes to the clause number 5. I'll show you this later. Clause number 5 of the IDO document is a documentation of the ontology itself. And then there have been some updates to the modeling facts annex, which is a kind of friendly introduction to using IDO for representing various facts. Well, that was actually all I had in my slides. Let us look at the way that IDO will present itself in as you're at your desk working on also project. Here I'm showing on the left the PDF of the previous version. This was the ISO formatted document that we had out in May, and this format, what you're seeing here, also is the format that will be used when the next version, the Draft International Standard version, comes out. While we are developing IDO, we use a literate programming system that has been designed to allow the sources to have a single source, both for the document and for the ontology. And while we are in the development phase, we generate temporary documents, so they don't look exactly the same. They are generated from the source, and a process or a separate task of preparing the ISO formatted PDF, the ISO formatted document properly, that follows after we finish our work on the ontology and the content of the document. So I hope this is reasonably clear what I'm trying to say. So we have here, you see the ISO document of the community draft version. This document currently looks like this. As you can see, there is no ISO decorations. It doesn't look the way it should. Well, this is because we're looking at the working document, what we consider the draft, the document we use to verify our changes as we go along in the periods between each ballot. So except for the formatting, this is the same, has the same content though as what will appear later in an ISO formatted document. So in this document we have, let me see, I think I have it. Yeah, just look at this actually. So there's scope, standard, a required part of any ISO standard explaining what this standard aims to provide, its purpose, and where it should be applied. Here, actually, extensive discussions were required over the last months. Then the normative references, let's check it out. This is very limited for IDO. We refer to the W3 standards for OWL, or the OWL 2 language, as the only normative references. Then terms and definitions. Well, these document various basic common notions that we need to employ in order to be able to talk about an ontology at all. Then we have abbreviated terms. So what it is what its name suggests, just a list of abbreviations. Unfortunately, we have gone so far that we have more than one page of abbreviations. And then we finally come to the most interesting section called IDO entities. And this is where we document the content of the ontology. So just to reiterate, on the right side of my screen here, you will see the Protégé editor from Stanford University. It's a great tool actually, and free software. So here you can browse the ontology, look at the you can look at the class hierarchy, you can look at the property hierarchy, and so forth. And it's been said many times that there's a one-to-one relationship between what is in the document and what is in the ontology. Yeah, this is true. Let us take one example. If I move to here, for instance, the section documenting lists object, which is a class. I can also find that in Protégé. And the idea here mainly is that the IDO document provides a nice diagram, nice readable diagram. All of the annotations are included here in the document. They also appear in the Protégé editor, but arguably it's more readable when you see them in the PDF. The PDF is also searchable, so you can, for instance, if you search for this class object, then you will find a match inside the graphic, and so forth. and we have sometimes axioms that apply to a resource from the ontology. Here we're looking at the class functional object. Restrictions are given in Manchester syntax in the document, and they correspond to what you will see here on the right side. Immediately below each section header in the document, there is an entry called parent. So this is to help the reader of the PDF document see where this particular entry belongs in the hierarchy. Arguably, if you're mainly interested in exploring the taxonomy of classes or properties, then exploring in the Protégé editor or this workbench software is better. But now we have added this. This is a difference from the previous version because it was requested. The document does have content which does not appear in the ontology though. In particular, this includes examples. So here, for instance, we have the class called feature, and we have an extensive example which we hope will be helpful to anyone who wants to apply IDO to concrete cases. If you're looking, for instance, in this case, we have a piping engineering example. This draws directly on the work that was done in Abel's extensive MMD system. So I think it's a fairly mature example, and we have a nice graphic showing how you might want to model the relations, the various attributes of or the various physical properties of a piping item with the breakdown of the various aspects of its shape and form and material and so forth. So the IDO document provides more than the ontology, and hopefully it's going to be a useful companion. I will now quickly just glance over the 3 annexes in the document. Annex A is called Modeling Facts with IDO, and this is intended to be a very compact introduction to the main categories of things that the IDO language is suitable for talking about. So, for example, if you want to talk about physical quantities, you may want to start by just looking into this section, and it will list those pieces of the vocabulary that are most immediately important to be aware of, to be familiar with, for representing physical quantities. And the same goes for temporal regions, participation, and so forth. Then in the annex called Supplementary Resources, the main feature is one section that talks about so-called shortcut properties. Not a topic we have time to go into here, but this is an interesting way to approach reducing complexity in your ontology, which is in many cases quite necessary, and the diagram illustrates the difference between 3 different degrees of complexity in a representation. Then furthermore, in the supplementary resources, we have a mention of how Shackle, which is a rule language with checking perhaps primarily referential integrity in semantic data, how this might be applied to an IDO use case. And then finally, Annex C talks about how IDO may be used in tandem with other ontologies that are available, because obviously IDO represents one corner of a fairly wide domain, and we describe here, the first one is aligning with the quite frequently used semantic sensor network ontology, describing how you might map from some, let's say here is this object. So how IDO's object class can be employed as a superclass for example, the system class of the semantic sensor networks object, or how physical object is a natural superclass for actuator, platform, and sampler in the semantic sensor network ontology. The same is applied to two other ontologies, namely the geosparkle ontology, which is an important resource for representing geographical information or general 2D geometrical information. This extends the vocabulary available in IDO that has to do with locations. So if you employ the alignment, you will have a much richer vocabulary for talking about areas and their overlaps and non-overlaps and so forth. For each of these sections in the annex, there is also a listing provided which describes the particular content of this alignment. And here, for instance, we can see that the entire alignment of IDO to geosparkle, which allows you to use geosparkle with IDO as an upper ontology. So the entire thing fits on one page, which is kind of nice. And if you want to find IDO on the web, many of you have seen this before, but I wanted to bring it up as a reminder. Under rds.postcsr.org, we have this page. You can navigate on the left to the reference data library menu, find IDO, and here it is. This is the latest version. Version 3.0 is what you will get if you go directly here. You can also access earlier versions. I think it might be able to do like this. Yeah, so earlier versions are also available and online, so that we don't lose track of our history as IDO moves through the various versions. The final alignment ontology is owl time. Which is here described in the document in detail with motivation for why the alignment has been done the way it is. So I think that's all I had to say this time around. Thank you. Back to you, Pål.
All right. I guess we have some time for some questions.
Yes, we have still 10 minutes to go.
Yeah. All right. I suggest you, Nils, you should be the administrator of the questioning, if that's okay.
Okay.
Would you? Yeah.
And I have two questions or two comments and one hand raised. So if we start with the comments first from you, Paulo.
Sure. Okay, it's just the word artifact that you mentioned there. We discussed this for 3 or 4 years during the Prov ontology group for W3C. And the problem with SCART use artifact is because it means defect in many contexts. So, but that's I heard that, and I see John laughing there. But okay, let's not get into that. The second thing is that you're using both Dolce and OBF to ground the quality entity. But I have personally had conversations with Nicole Guarini and Barry Smith in a single meeting, and they could not agree on what quality is. So citing both may not be a good idea. I would rather see which one is better for you and pick one. But I have something a lot more important to ask. My big question I have for IDO is the following. If you pick up a platform from Equinor and you want to use IDO to fully describe it, I think you have done a terrific job and you should be able to do it. Okay? My problem that I see with IDO from what I have seen so far, and I may be completely wrong, I have very little knowledge of IDO actually, but I'm completely missing this from the presentation I saw last time. And especially from the presentation last time. This time I have not seen anything reaching that point. But the problem I see is that, have you used IDO to manage a real system for an year? Do you have this background? That's my question, because what I see is that if you take a snapshot of a real world scenario, and you take a snapshot of the same scenario 1 year after, that's where I see the shortcomings of IDO. Because that's exactly what we have been doing with IBM for 10 years, working with managing MQTT streamed data on Lake George in New York State, where we have the very large base net of sensors. And you need to accommodate for the thing that sensors break down, sensors need to be removed for calibration, sensors need to be rearranged, sensors modify over time. You need to remove one and put another one that's more modern. And since we are talking about data, all those events needs to be documented in the ontology. And I do not even see a term like deployment defined in the IDO.
There is one very short answer to your request.
Yes.
You would use the specified class.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to track lifecycle like you talk about, then the object property you want to use is called implements, or the inverse implemented by.
Okay.
So I have a sensor, call it ABC.
Okay.
I will have at least I will, during the design phase, I will give it one identifier, and then I will, when I install something to serve as my designed sensor, I will relate that back to the design object using the implements relation. And this will mean that my design entity is in the specified class, and the serial numbered concrete specimen is in the actual class.
And how that all trickles down to the data, that's my real concern. How you know that the data is coming from a sensor deployer that plays X now and Y 6 months from now? How you figure out what is the implication of taking that data out? Because, for instance, I work with the same infrastructure for astronomy data, and they need to calibrate the instrument. And without the calibration data, the data itself is useless. So you need to not only know about the event, you need to know deeply about how the event affects the data generated by every time you deploy the data. Do you think this specified and implements have the solution for all of that?
I'd say division of labor might be a key word here. I would hesitate to put too much of the responsibility on the ontological representation in this case.
Yeah. May I answer? So I think I understand you, Paolo, because what is still missing, Paul mentioned it at the beginning, IDO is more philosophical upper definition. Now we have to think about how to use it. And this is the next step. So that use cases you have mentioned are then covered by maybe some kind of patterns where Johan has mentioned is considered, that you then have well-defined patterns for the different use cases. And this is what is still missing, but what is the next step, and from my perspective, completely needed. If you want to use it and that it scales, that it really then is exchangeable between different companies and so on and so forth. So I would say a lot of work is still in front of us, but the upper level is now stable and defined and should and can be used. And this is the reason why we want to have now the submittal, that the next step can be started based on a fundament.
I'd like to also say, Paolo, thank you very much for these comments.
Yes.
They're super useful to us, and if you see particular challenges and you would be able to take the time to submit them to us, then we would appreciate it very much.
Yes, exactly. You are invited.
Yes.
I think, Johan, this is Torbjörn. I think we need to discuss, and I think that's in line with what Paolo is talking about, the change management. How do we replace the sensor with another sensor, still remembering that the history of it? And right now I'm working with STEP and product lifecycle support, and that have all that, and we are putting that below IDO, but I'm not really sure that if it will violate or be a correct way of doing things. But that discussion, we are in it right now, so we need to have technical meetings with that. But I don't want to disturb the publication of this DIS, exactly what Heiner is saying, because we rely on that. But there are things that we believe, or I believe, and I think it's in line with Paulo's statement, that what is happening in the real plant, we need to be able to capture. And perhaps we can do it, but I don't see it. That's why I need to raise this question. There need to be an event or an effectivity date or something when we replace something with something else. And probably you have an answer on that, but let's talk about that next time, perhaps.
Let us there have been a couple of hands raised, so I think we should take it in the order that it came in. And I am not sure, but I had Harris also with his hand raised first. So
yeah,
please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So my question is that when you're publishing the IDO, would you be publishing any information where you're going to have additional classes that you have used from the ISO 15926? Because if somebody has done their crosswalking with ISO 15926, it will be very helpful for them. That, and the other question is that whether you would be also giving the use cases which are currently being, used to test the IDO. So would those also be published along with the standards documentation somewhere else, maybe? Yeah. Thank you.
So maybe on the latter, the use cases will not be part of the standard going forward. They will be, we are striving to publish, information about use cases on POSCISR's web pages. Right. And then identifying link, and then sort of link up to the sources where the use cases are, the use case teams are publishing their material. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, right. That's what I was saying. That somewhere other than the standard, if it can be published, that will be very useful. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Because initially it was part of the standard, but we found it more useful to take it out because it's a little bit more of dynamics to it. Yeah. Yeah, you can add more cases maybe later. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But on the 15926, I'm not sure. We are not providing any specific mappings to. In addition to what's in IDO as such to any other standards or else what the Johan has shown, but there is at least mappings to or annotations indicating from where in 1596 some of the classes are taken from.
Okay, right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Jean-Charles, you had also your hand raised, but I don't know if you got your question answered.
No, it's just to say that on the top of IDO and following Paulo example and Johan comments, driving your graph and semantic knowledge graph, while it's a format that can be convenient for all, if we exchange triple with RDF and RDFS, and driving your draft and your graph to IDO range and domain and several axioms, property structure, and implementing, in fact, connectors and application ontology based on your information system and structures to combine it through a common graph. It makes sense while you can manage your graph, in fact, over time, while the occupies spatio-temporal region evolved and can be captured, of course, whatever the physical and functional object that are located relative to in terms of location. It occurs with temporal region with role quality that evolve over time and that can be tracked easily.
Okay, we are now 2 minutes over the top of the hour, so I think I will stop here. We will continue this actually next Friday, same time as today. And if you have questions and comments that we should discuss next Friday, we would be very happy if you could send it to us, to me, to Nils Sandsmark, or to Pål Rylandsholm. And with that, I think I thank you so much for attending this, and I will stop the recording.
There is a hand. It's suddenly. Oh, so sorry. I thought Torbjörn raised his hand.
Yeah, but is it very important, Torbjörn, or can we take it next week?
Just want to say I liked it.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
Thanks.
See you next Friday.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.